Welcome back, everybody. I'm Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today, we're going to be reviewing Book 1 in Ken Follett's Century Trilogy, and Book 1 is Fall of Giants. So, I just had a vacation here. I went to Virginia, Washington, D.C., followed that up by going to the Connecticut Comic-Con. It was about a 10-day trip. This is the book I took with me to read on the trip. Normally I read like a book or two. I can usually read a book or maybe every day, maybe every 2 days I can get through a book. But, for the vacation, I just took the one book because I knew I wasn't going to have a lot of time to read. But I'll tell you, on the plane, I read a lot, and I loved every minute of this. This is the second time I've read this book. I read each book as they were published, and now I'm rereading the series and loving every minute of it. This stuff is great. Let's talk about the covers first. So I've got the whole trilogy here. We can see that I've got a hardcover of each and a mass market paperback of each. I also have every one of these books on audible.com, so I've got 3 versions of the books, as I do with most of the books in my library, actually. And so let's take a look at the cover. The cover is pretty cool, They always make Ken Follett books look pretty slick and dope, the publishers. So this is the hardcover. The paperback is almost a mirror image of the hardcover, except for the back's a little different. The spines are about the same. Let's see. And on the shelf, all of the books are the same, so they all look pretty dope on your shelf, put together. They've all got similar, just a great job by the publisher of keeping a uniform look to the trilogy. So, in both hardcover and mass market paperback. So, good for them. What are these books about? This is, Ken Follett. I've got my whole Ken Follett collection down here. I'll just show it to you. Those are all my Ken Follett books. The man started out as a thriller writer. He wrote World War II thrillers, and he got really good at it and really famous doing it. And then, of course, he came out with his big, huge historical epic Pillars of the Earth, and it just exploded, and he became one of the biggest selling novelists of all time. And the Pillars of the Earth, if you've watched my top 5 novels of all time list, that finished in the top 5. This is everybody's good. This Century Trilogy, it's just, I remember when I first read them, I was blown away, but on a reread, I am even more impressed at how fantastic of an author Ken Follett is. What are these books about? Well, it's a trilogy about the 19th century, from the year 1900 all the way up until our present day. And it's a family saga, so each book, the book 1, it focuses on World War I and the family, and 5 families. There's the Williams family in Wales. There's Grigory and Lev and their families out in Russia. There's the Walter and Otto and Robert von Ulrich in Germany. There's Gus Dewar and his family in America. And then there is another family somewhere else. Let me see if I can... I just read this. I don't know why I can't remember. The Americans, the Dewar family, the German family, the von Ulrichs we've talked about, the Russians, Grigory Peshchov and Lev Peshchov, the Welch, the Williams family, and that's the families. Great stuff here. And the Fitzherberts. I forgot about the Fitzherberts. Okay, the Fitzherberts too. So there's the Fitzherberts also in there. And so we get these great families, and they're all intertwined. And book 1 is focused on World War I. Book 2, the families of the generations have changed a little bit, and we're focused on World War II. And then in The third book was focused a little on Korean War, Vietnam War, and into the 1980s and 90s and stuff. So it's sort of a century, it's like 100-year span of these family sagas where these 5 families from all across the world are intertwined. And I tell you, the plots really is thick and juicy, and it intertwines. It's like a soap opera mixed with one of the most bloody war novels you'll ever read. And all 3 of them are just like that. And it takes you through the entire century and all of the big events of the century, and how these families all had to deal with it and react and kind of come together. And there's a lot of intermarriages between these families, and a lot of these guys meet on the battlefields as both enemies and allies, and also in the political courtroom. And also there's mobsters. I forgot about the mobsters. There's mobsters, and it's just great. I kind of starts out a little bit. It starts out in Wales with Billy Williams, who's a miner. He's his family. They're miners, and they go down into the coal mines, and it starts with Billy Williams and he's just a young boy in his adventure to go work in the coal mine his first day, and bad things happen, people get killed, and it's just harrowing to see how grim and gritty the Welsh countryside was in the early 1900s. And then we get to the Fitzherbert and his family, and they are living kind of like the Downton Abbey lifestyle, and they are just right there near the coal mines, and so we get this interplay between Billy Williams' family and his sister Ethel, and then and how like lowly their life is, and then the high society and the Downton Abbey-esque society of Fitzherbert. And Billy Williams' sister Ethel works as a maid in the big manor of the Fitzherbert, and so we get this interplay, and then we also have the Von Ulrichs, and Fitzherbert's sister Maud falls in love with this German guy, Walter von Ulrich, and tensions between Germany and England and things like that. And then my favorite storyline is the Russian one with Grigory and Lev and the peasant girl Katerina, and the love triangle between the 2 brothers and the girl, and the one brother just desperately saving his money to go to America because he wants to go to America. He knows some Russian people that have went to America and they can help him. But what he doesn't know is those Russians that went to America are actually Russian mobsters that went to America. And we find this out later in the story when one of the brothers actually does go to America and gets involved with these mobsters. And it's just such a great storyline. And it's so heartbreaking because almost every one of these characters that is male, well, all the ones that are female, back in the early 1900s, there weren't a lot of female rights. So some of them are fighting for the female rights, and that's a very interesting angle too, because we get to see how oppressed they are and how they sort of are really sort of taking charge of their lives to fight for their rights. And then every man in this book has to fight in World War I. And it's one of the things that I learned about World War I is not just the 18 and 19-year-olds went to fight World War I. No, if you were a guy anywhere between Russia, France, and England, if you were a dude 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, you strapped a rifle on and you went and you fought in that war. I mean, it's just the way it was. There was no free pass for almost anybody. So everybody goes to this war. All of our characters, be they Russian, Welsh, English, German, American, they're all thrust into this World War I, and it's just bloody, brutal battle scenes, and the interplay between how each one of these characters, be they noble-born or peasant, they're all stuck in the same battles, and it's just amazing. It's amazing. This is, like I said, this is 2 parts soap opera, 5 parts war novel, and 10 parts just drama. There's always conflict in every scene. There's always something magnificently important going on in every scene. I just love this book to death, and I knew I loved the trilogy when I first read them, and I'm with second reading, because there's a ton of characters, and with the second reading, I'll be honest, it was a lot easier to follow all the characters, kind of knowing already who they were. And the second reading, man, I drank in every word of this book. And I can't wait to get to... I mean, I want to jump into them right now, but I've got other books I need to there's some new releases coming up in the Salt Lake City Comic Con and a few things coming up. So I'm going to have to put these on the back burner for a few weeks. But I want to dive into them right now because I want to find out what happens to all of the little children that were born to these characters will become adults during the World War II portion of the trilogy, and then all of their children become adults during the later third of the century, and it's just, you get to follow all of it, and it's just such a wonderful book. And the start of one of my favorite historical trilogies. It really reminds me of the North and South trilogy, which you can see up there, that I have by John Jakes, which is also a multi-generational family saga set around the Civil War time and the aftermath of the Civil War. One of my favorite writers of all time, Ken Follett. One of my favorite trilogies of all time, the Century Trilogy. And book number 1 is fucking great. I give it 10 out of 10. It's almost a perfect book. It almost kept me as involved and engrossed, and I just couldn't wait to dive back into it every night and on the airplane and things like that. Just super, super awesome. 10 out of 10, folks. For The Fall of Giants, book 1 of the Century Trilogy, Ken Follett.